All-American, the sports drama show that had the potential to be an all-time great show, but lost its touch to many fans by its third season. If you've been here long enough, you know my opinion on this show, especially its 5th season, which I made one of my most iconic videos on my channel by roasting the absolute mess out of how bad it was. After the absolute disaster of a season 5, I literally had no expectations for a season 6, so much so that I didn't even watch the season week by week like I normally did, and instead waited for the season to drop on Netflix. Well, it finally dropped on Netflix around a month ago on July 23rd, and I've been waiting for a year to do this video because I was sure that season 6 was probably going to be worse than season 5, and I couldn't wait to just absolutely bash this season. But after binge watching it all, it literally pains me to say that I actually liked this season, and I think it was one of the better seasons of All-American. I wanted to hate this season so bad as I was getting clips of the season spoiled on social media and seeing different news headlines about the show, and I didn't even care because based off of what I was seeing, I thought my suspicions were going to be right. But as I was watching, I was blown away at how much I was enjoying the season after literally having zero expectations for it. They must have watched my video or something because they legitimately fixed this show and many of the issues that I had with it in the previous season. Well, kinda. As much as I liked it, it was not perfect, and I still do have a lot of issues with it, which can be expected with any show, but they did completely fix it. Let me explain it all right now, as I've been waiting to talk about this show again since the season 5 video, so let's just hop straight into it. So the season opens up with it being a year and 3 months since the ending of season 5, and they already fixed a major issue that I had with the previous season, the football aspect. They immediately open up with a montage of the past year of the college team that Jordan and Spencer play on, and this montage shows more football than the whole last season. They actually made the football storyline interesting this season, as they show how Spencer has become a top NFL prospect, and within the past year, he's been getting all the attention rather than the whole team, which causes a rift between Jordan and Spencer. They show that Jamie has given birth off screen and her and Asher have a son. Olivia is getting ready to return to LA from London. Layla bought the Slauson Cafe that has been one of the most used locations in the show and turned into her own music restaurant lounge type of place. And news breaks that the camera footage of Miko, who was the crazy fan from last season who stabbed patients, being at the scene is thrown out of the case. I really appreciate the use of time jumps in this season, as there's 3 of them, because there's no point in having to spend a season to show us every little detail. They also add another good conflict within the football story where they add a new analyst coach to Coach Kenny's coaching squad named Coach Mac, who believes in Jordan, which further causes the rift between Spencer and Jordan. However, his character is literally the worst because he always thinks that he is right and he's just constantly against Spencer, but at the same time, I like how it interferes with the story because it actually makes an interesting story regarding the football aspect. The football aspect is probably my favorite part of the season because it felt like All-American again. And I was never the type of person to go, oh, well, this show's not even about football anymore, which is the reason a lot of fans were giving for why they stopped watching beyond season 3. The only time I ever said something like that was when season 5 came out. But they went back to their roots and actually balanced out the football and the relationship drama, or the vortex, or whatever it's called. They even bring back the character of Wade from season 4 through Asher after his team's quarterback is forced to miss the whole season, and even that stirs up good and honestly funny conflict with Spencer and Jordan in an episode. But that's not what pushes their beef. Like I stated earlier, Spencer and Jordan's conflict starts when the head football guy, I'm not even sure of bro's name, but he's annoying. Anyways, he hires a new analyst coach who later becomes an offensive coordinator, and he believes that Jordan is the team's greatest asset, so he purposely starts cutting Spencer out of the plays and having Jordan throw the ball to other players based on the stats. Spencer then declares for the draft in hopes to bring attention to the rest of the team, but it backfires and starts to mess up his chemistry with Jordan and his role within the team. This is a great conflict because Spencer goes from starting to care more about himself than the team since declaring for the draft, meaning that all the attention is back on him, and with the new coordinator coming in, it messes up his role within the team and it makes his character do a complete 360 and starting to care more about himself rather than the whole team, which has always been an issue with Spencer and feeling the need to save everyone. He starts to fall out of the Heisman race and Jordan starts to get most of the praise and enters the Heisman race, which I feel is just the perfect conflict because Spencer has always been the star player and now he gets to know how it feels to be in the background. They also had a new character named Dion, who is labeled as the next Spencer James, who goes to South Crenshaw for Spencer to mentor, and he's actually used very well as his story gives insight as how it is to have anxiety and pressure while being an athlete, and how some people are just kind of forced into being athletes without having a say. They also compare him and Spencer's relationship to him and Billy's relationship when they first started the show in a later episode, and I just thought that was amazing writing because I didn't even notice it until they pointed it out. The second half of the season with them winning the college national championship and Spencer prepping for the NFL was probably the best storyline football wise this season. Later in the season when Spencer is actually about to get drafted, He drops out of the first round completely after being a projected top 5 pick, and we have no idea why. It's revealed that he was passed up in the first round because of a leaked audio that we saw in an earlier scene during the combine of him basically saying that the NFL teams were checking everything that wasn't really that important to playing football. I don't know how draft combines actually work, and I can't attest to how real the show depicted it, but I like that they give us insight into how combines possibly are, and the fact that as a professional athlete, or just a celebrity in general, you really can't say or do anything without being monitored. He eventually does get drafted to the fake New York team while at Jordan and Layla's wedding since they can't use the actual team names, and it time skips again to 10 months later where he wins the Super Bowl and the MVP, which is loosely based off the real Spencer, as he signed with the New York Giants and won a Super Bowl with them in his rookie season. Overall, they killed it with the football aspect this season, and I was surprised at how they made it all work considering that I had no expectations for this season. Next, regarding the characters and relationships, this is where we start to get a little bit rocky, but let me start with the good stuff first. They actually offer some interesting storylines with some of the characters this season. One of the best storylines that they have in this season is regarding Patience and how she is dealing with the stabbing that happened at the end of season 5. The whole season they show that Miko is on the verge of possibly avoiding prison for stabbing Patience, and it starts to mess with her mentally, which leads to some weird writing choices, but I'll just get into that later. This is going to be surprising, but Koopa is literally one of my favorite characters this season. Her character development is actually insane as she becomes one of the most entertaining characters. Absolutely love that she doesn't immediately try to jump back into getting with Patience and is just there for her as a friend and does whatever she can to help her. It makes them eventually getting back together feel a lot more organic and not forced like it has felt in the past previous seasons. Cool being able to bounce back from her music career cutting short and finding a passion with Law to get into Yale at the end of the season is a full turnaround from the previous seasons. Asher probably has the best character development in the entire show, and even though his role isn't as big this season, he has many moments where I actually care about his story. I love that he ends his journey by going back to coach at Beverly, and that he gets to play football one last time since he spends part of the season just missing the game. Him and Jamie's limited storyline is the most interesting couple-wise, as they get so focused on parenthood that they don't really find time for each other as a couple. They're literally the perfect couple in this show and relate to each other so much and that they feel refreshing from the main couples that we focus on. I also love how they continue to give side characters like Preach and Grace something to do, and it doesn't feel like they're just there just to be there, and you actually care about what they're doing. And speaking of feeling like characters that aren't there for no reason, they bring back certain characters that aren't in the show as much or aren't in the show at all anymore, and they actually bring them back in good ways that help impact the characters. They bring back Sean from season 1 for the championship game episode as a guardian angel character, and he's there to remind Spencer to shake off the doubt and step into the future. They also bring back Chris in the same episode as a reminder of where Spencer came from. I also want to make a point of the use of locations in this season. I really like that the cabin is always the place where the characters get everything out that's bothering them in each season, and the championship game episode is a big step for Spencer's character as he revisits every field that he's played on, and it feels somewhat nostalgic being a fan of the show for a long time. But of course the biggest return was Billy Baker in the form of letters and journals that he wrote while he was alive. They bring him back in the 8th episode, and it's one of the most heartfelt and real episodes of the show, as they have him narrating the letters while his spirit is there, and it feels like he's really there. I like how they keep his legacy alive in this season, and they don't let us forget how big of a part he was to the show. Olivia changing her book from a biography to a children's book series, celebrating him rather than putting every inch of his life on blast, was a good decision for the story and for Olivia's character. Spencer and Olivia and Jordan and Layla all getting married feels earned, even though they've suffered through their problems this season and in previous seasons, and they finally all secure their relationships, and they wrap them up nicely. I have more to say about their relationships, but I'll discuss that later. Kinda off topic, but I want to mention how funny this season was. Usually I hate the stupid Disney Channel humor and the forced jokes that they try to do to sound more cool and hip and Gen Z, but this was probably the funniest season. The line delivery and many of the jokes were actually landing, as I caught myself laughing really hard in many of the episodes and at the stuff that was happening. Spencer's birthday in episode 4 was generally some of the funniest stuff in the show, but as much as I liked this season, it wasn't perfect, and they had a lot of different issues that kind of brought me back into my previous issues with the 5th season. My biggest issue with season 6 is so much of the forced conflict that they do with the characters. And it's not just forced conflict, but it seems like they just force a lot of different things in this season. But of course that comes in what I feel like has always been the weakest part of the show, the relationships. Now I know I just said that's Bolivia and Jor Layla. I know I use the cringy ship names, but I'm not going to say their full names all in the same sentence. But they force so much with their relationships this season. To start with Jordan and Layla, they're a cute couple, but they're literally the most annoying relationship in the entire season. They literally argue and get mad at each other in every episode, and I understand that that's what couples do, but it seems like the direction for them this season was, these characters are going to get married, so let's have them argue about everything up until they actually get married. It kind of made me get sick of their relationship after a while, because every time they were on screen, they were arguing about something or throwing jabs at each other, then making up in the next episode. It's just repetitive, and with the way that this show has gone in the past, it would make you think that they would break up and rekindle later in the season, but they didn't do that, and I actually really appreciate that. One of the other 4 storylines was with Spencer and Olivia, as she comes back from London, and we see her get a text from someone named Ashley, and we assume that she met a girl and has some type of thing with them. But we find out that Ashley is actually a guy when he randomly shows up to her house, and they try to force a conflict of Olivia not telling anybody that Ashley was a guy the whole time, and they make it seem like Olivia has some secret feelings for him. In my opinion, this storyline was stupid and didn't need to be in the season, because it felt forced in trying to have Spencer not trust Olivia over it and have him be skeptical of Ashley and how close they are. They forced it even more by having Olivia say that she eventually wants to move back to London, and even when I was watching this, I knew it wasn't because of Ashley, because Olivia was never showing any signs that she had feelings for him, but they were making her say stupid stuff like that to push the narrative of Ashley being a possible love interest. It was clear from the start that he liked her way more than she liked him, and she didn't even like him or have any feelings for him the whole time, because she literally has Spencer as a boyfriend. This plotline is literally recycled from season 3, where Asher hung out with Vanessa, who was Coach Mr. and Mrs. Montez's daughters for a summer, and the fact that he was with Olivia during this time, so they brought her in the story to make it seem like she was gonna steal Asher away from Olivia, but they never even did anything romantic and didn't amount to anything. They used the same tropes, like when Vanessa would say, "The Asher I met this summer never would have did this," but instead they have Ashley go, "Oh, Olivia, you're a completely different person here. The Olivia that I know was such an amazing," like, shut up already. I absolutely despise how they kept trying to push this whole new Olivia agenda within the first couple episodes, but she literally came back from London and continued to act the same way that she always has, just very sneaky and honestly annoying. Every time Olivia would mention how she felt like the new her didn't fit in LA anymore, that London was just so life-changing for her, it just felt so fake and forced to create a conflict. I hate how they also force certain situations with patience as well. There's 3 parts in particular that I'm talking about. She has a storyline in season 6 where she wants to learn self-defense in order to protect herself because of the Miko situation, and a bar fight breaks out in one of the episodes, and she tries to get out of the way, and a random dude gets thrown onto her who was a part of the fight, who wasn't even trying to hurt her, and they have her defend herself and go full Cobra Kai on him for no reason at all. Then the video gets leaked online, and they try to use that as a storyline for people turning on her in preparation for the trial. After that happens, they try to make her force herself onto Coop to force a setup of them eventually getting back together. Then they make it to where Patience is losing her patience. Get it? Cause like her name is Patience. But anyway, she's getting sick of getting slandered and treated like she's the bad guy, to where she goes as far as to pull up to Miko's house with a whole gun. Like, really? Why would you write her to be that stupid to do something like that just because she all of a sudden remembers she's from Crenshaw? And I hate how they never show us what happened after Patience got stabbed, and that everyone's just supposed to believe that Coop found her in time and took her to the hospital. They also force relationships with the adults as well, as Laura spends part of the season being forced by the other characters to move on from Billy and start dating again. That's mostly because of Laura's mom and Billy's dad, who come in and push her to start dating, but within that, they literally start dating each other out of nowhere, which is just weird, because even though Billy is dead, if he was still alive and this was happening, Billy and Laura would be brother and sister-in-laws if they were to get married, while still being married. Like what is that, bro? And I obviously can't forget the scene where Asher suits up in the national championship game because their receiver got hurt. It's gotta be one of the most stupidest yet heartfelt moments in the whole series. I got this clip spoiled on TikTok, and that just added to my judgment before even watching it, but basically Asher substitutes into the game when he was just coaching on the sidelines, and the explanation for why he's allowed to play is because Mr. Montez never took him off the roster spot for the past 3 years that he's been coaching there. Okay, what? Let's be real for a second here. I'm pretty sure if someone was on your coaching staff, you had to report that to the NCAA, and he would not be holding a roster spot for 3 whole years when everybody knows that this guy is a coach and not a player. Then he comes into the game and immediately scores a touchdown while running slow AF, but he is hit hard, and they do a dramatic scene as if he isn't gonna get up, just for him to get up. Now, it was cool to see Asher play again, but it was just done in the most stupid and most unrealistic way possible. But that's not even the worst part. My absolute biggest criticism and the biggest forced moment that probably ruins the season for me is the fact that they're doing a season 7. Yes, you heard me right, they're doing another season of the show. And I knew that this was the case before I even started season 6, because I would just see different spoilers and articles through social media, and during the final couple episodes, I was wondering how they could possibly continue this show. What makes it even worse is that I had saw that like Cody Christian, who plays Asher, was leaving the show and wouldn't return for a season 7. But to make it even worse, I then saw that Daniel Ezra, who plays Spencer James, the literal star of the show, was not returning as the main character for season 7, but would still be involved with the show for guest appearances. Literally, why would you still keep this show going when the main star isn't even going to be the main character anymore? The way that they were ending this season literally felt like a send-off of the entire show, and that it would be the final season. I love how they were wrapping everything up and literally giving every character a good ending. Asher gets to go back to Beverly to coach with Mrs. Montez, Jamie becomes the manager at Layla's place, Patience gets to go on Broadway in New York, Coop gets into Yale, Jordan gets a coaching job at South Crenshaw, Olivia becomes a best-selling author, Spencer's an NFL star, and Bolivia and Layla get married. Literally everyone had a send-off, but of course they had to give us something within the last couple of minutes that gives them an excuse to do another season. Jordan is gifted Billy's playbook, and out falls a baby picture of someone who looks like Billy. Jordan asks Billy's dad about it at Spencer and Olivia's wedding, and he tells him that it's Billy's long-lost older brother, who isn't his kid, but instead Billy's mom's son, who was in the picture before Willie was even around. Literally, why? Why are we still forcing this show? We do not need another season of a football show called All-American where the All-American isn't even the lead in the show anymore. We don't need a whole season of Jordan likely leading the show to figure out information about his long-lost uncle who we never even knew about until now. Even when I try to give this show credit, they always have to force stuff that isn't interesting and is poorly written. It would be different if they were doing a spin-off, but this is still the main show, and they're continuing All-American where the All-American is literally in the NFL now. Seriously, what is this, bruh? I know this is supposed to be a positive video about how All-American made a solid bounce-back season, but it's just the constant forced storylines like this to keep the show going that just makes me despise the CW and the writers of this show. You know what, let me just wrap it up here because I'm about to get mad. Season 6 had its ups and downs, but overall, it was a good bounce-back season to a horrible previous season. But I will say this right now, I will not be watching season 7. The only way I will watch that is if it's to make a video on it. But as far as I'm concerned, the original All-American story is over. I think this season was good to me because it felt like a solid final season and a genuine final send-off to these characters that fans have been with for the past 6 years. It felt like they were actually trying this season to make a good closing story, well, at least for the most part, until they forced that brother plotline at the end. But anyways, the football aspect was probably the best and most interesting that it's been since season 2, and that alone makes it better than season 3 and 5, but I'm trying to figure out if it's better than season 4, because the forced conflict and the fact that they wrote a setup for season 7 brings down points for me. I'll probably do a full rewatch of the whole series to make a ranking video of all the seasons, but I was definitely not expecting to make a mostly positive video on season 6, and even though I had a lot to say regarding what I didn't like, I liked it more than I might have let on, and it's one of the more rewatchable seasons because I rewatched this season again in preparation for this video, and I was still enjoying myself and laughing at the jokes that I was watching it for the first time. But I want to hear what you guys thought about season 6 because I know that there's probably people who hate this season like I hated season 5 and think that it was the worst season. But I hope you guys enjoyed my All-American season 6 breakdown, and if you did, leave a like and comment down your thoughts on the season, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.